저도 비슷한 얘기를 해주고 싶은데요. 그냥 자기 자신을 믿고 계속 앞으로 나아가라는 말을 해주고 싶습니다. 뭐 14년 전에 아무도 좋아하지 않았던, 모두가 노라고 얘기했던 이 스퀴드 게임이 갑자기 모두가 사랑하는 작품이 됐잖아요. 자기 자신을 믿고 계속 무언가를 꾸준히 열심히 하면 당신들에게도 뭐 여러분한테도 이런 기적 같은 일이 생길 수 있다고 믿고 있습니다. 그래서
Love that.
But make a list of everyone who says no, and then like we just rub it in their faces later.
Actually, I did it.
Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, the business program. I'm Jazz Tangcay, Senior Artisans Editor at Variety. If you are interested in programming like this from the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to have our panel of Emmy-nominated writers. Hello and welcome to you all.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my gosh, what an incredible room to be in. So I'm going to kick this off right away with like a really fun round robin question and ask you each, what are you binging or what are you watching right now? And I'm going to go around and I'll start with you, Director Hwang. What are you watching or binging?
I'm not watching anything these days. I'm working on my script of season 2 of Squid Game, so I didn't have time to watch anything, to be honest.
Liz, what about you? What are you watching or binging when you get the time?
I always make time to watch television. No, I've been watching All Creatures Great and Small, the PBS show. It just is the most heartwarming, calming show. And I'm like, oh no, is the cow gonna make it? You know, and that's very sweet. And
I love that. John, what about you? What are you binging or watching?
I agree. I'm right in the middle of starting the season 3 room, so my head is filled with that, and I either sort of calm down by watching like Family Feud at night. It's like that, like that's where I go in my head. I need a very calming show. The only one that I've recently watched that I just adored was in its lovely, straightforward way was Heartstopper. I saw Heartstopper and was like, oh my God, I think I just need the comfort of it after a day on this, you know, dance show and all of it.
Tom, what's your comfort show?
Is everyone working but me? Because I have nothing but time to watch television. We love What We Do in the Shadows because Mark Proksch was on our show. We're big fans of him, and then we just got sucked into the whole world. So we're very excited whenever a new episode comes on the DVR.
Yeah, Sarah.
Oh, I love Tom's answer. It's probably the reality is it's a lot of Bravo, but I also did just watch The Bear, my more highbrow answer, but I love both of them equally.
Love it. Paul, what are you watching, binging, or what's your comfort show?
No, when I need to relax and feel comforted, I watch Better Call Saul. I have to say, please don't spoil because I'm not finished. So sorry, Tom. I need to make sure things are discreet and cryptic today, if that's okay.
Everything's coming out, so plug your ears.
Oh, okay.
Stephanie, what about you? What are you watching or binging?
I am not watching a lot of TV, but maybe it kind of counts. I've seen that freaking Elvis movie twice in theaters. I don't know how. That thing is insane. What a crazy movie. I love it. Can't get enough. Round 3 coming up if you guys want to come.
I've seen it twice too. I totally get it.
Wow. Weirdly, same for us. We're in the season 3 room for Hacks, so not a ton of watching time, but I've been making time to watch Drive to Survive, the Formula One Netflix documentary. And so I don't know why fiery race crashes where people nearly lose their lives is comfort watch, but that's kind of what I've been enjoying recently. But now I want to see Elvis a couple times. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Good.
Come, Stephanie.
Molly, what's your show?
Well, my husband and I rotate picking. And so right now we're on The Captain, which is the Derek Jeter documentary series, which is great. I'm not a big baseball fan, but I still totally love it. And then my pick, which we just got done with, was The Bear. On FX, everybody probably loved to watch, but I worked on Shameless for a long time. So it was really fun to see Jeremy in this role. So that's me.
I love that. And, a lot of you are back in the writer's room. I mean, the past couple of years have been insane, with the pandemic, working over Zoom. What is it like for you now to be back in the writer's room? I'm assuming a lot of you have been back in person, and just that transition again of, trying to brainstorm over tiny boxes versus we're back in a round table, we're back, like there's a different energy. John, do you want to kick that off?
It's the sound of the brown paper bags coming down the hallway that says lunch that you don't get on a Zoom, and that feeling that happens in a room where every idea in the room gets completely stopped and everyone just like loses their minds all of a sudden. That there's no leap between pre-pandemic and after pandemic. It's exactly the same. That is a nice constant in the room. And then otherwise, it's just the strangeness of human bodies that I get obsessed on. We've done nothing but write this show entirely on a Zoom room, and maybe most of you have done the same. But I don't know. It's both the sweetness of, oh, look at your pinky finger. I don't know. I get obsessed on those things. Like, I don't realize a lot of that stuff from people I've known so intimately for 2 seasons now, and now we're in a completely different space and universe. So it's kind of amazing and very exciting to have many whiteboards. That's the other thing I would say.
Yeah. Does anybody want to add to John's answer about what it's like being back in person in writers' rooms and just feeling a different energy, creativity?
Is anyone back in a we just finished the final mix for SAUL, and I haven't been in a writer's room in a while, but even the mixing COVID restrictions are still, we're very strict. We're only a certain amount of people allowed in the mix room. A lot of people do it over Zoom still. So I haven't been in a writer's room in a little while.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about, I'm curious on the script side, like so many of your shows, all of them have like great music, like, needle drops, or like there's incredible camera angles and stuff. Like, how much of that do you put in to your script of like, let's, if we can, like, let's, this song comes in here, or like, this camera angle here for this scene. How many of you like put that into your scripts and utilize that to tell the story?
We do everything. No, I'm just kidding. Right. Sorry, John. I was gonna piggyback on what you said about the writers' room, because I haven't been back, but I was just thinking about like the sound of writers like sucking on like pistachio shells. Like, there's so many things I'm like, at the time I would be like, I would have wanted it to be on Zoom, but now I miss it. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I had a joke to make, but I didn't have a real answer. But let me we had amazing music supervisor on the Dropout who was so amazing, so helpful for us in just in terms of locating like the one song that was going to put you into 2012 versus 2015. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of like also me going through old like very embarrassing playlists that I made after a series of breakups. But camera angles, no. I mean, beyond just like, hey, look over there, and
Yeah. Does anybody else write needle drops into their scripts or?
Yes, absolutely. The episode the episode of What We Drew in the Shadows that I wrote this season, the Wellness Center episode, there's like, I don't know, Sarah, how long is that montage? It's too long.
Not long enough, in
Not
my
long
opinion,
enough,
but it
right.
rides or dies.
There's a montage where some of the cast, and it's just sort of like playing over the episode of singing Bare Naked Ladies one week, and that was written into the script and became, if I remember, kind of a headache to clear, and we re-recorded it, and we had so many different versions of it, truncated, elongated, and it just turned into a bigger issue because we shot this show during like some of the most intense COVID restrictions, I think, that were going on in Canada where we shoot the show at the time. So we actually got to a point where a group of actors were supposed to be singing that song and were not allowed because of COVID protocols. So they had to very strategically be placed in a room and mouthing the words as to not sing Bare Naked Ladies too hard that they gave other people in the room COVID, I guess. But that is one of those very particular, I guess, instances on the show where we write that in. Sarah, I don't know.
I feel like it's usually when it's like pivotal to the joke. Like in Stephanie's episode, it was like the true mark of being human is that you know all the lyrics to 1 week. So it was vital to get that song. But I think on Shadows, because of the mockumentary, we do sometimes write in camera moves just because we play with, like, you know, if we want the camera to catch something in particular or like kind of be a bit more of a live actor in the space, then we'll write that in if it helps for the joke that like the camera operator gets killed or they're yelling fuck and are as like as scared as the characters or something like that.
Yeah. Stephanie, sorry, go ahead.
I know. I just want to say I spent years as a screenwriter, like writing like really visually interesting, unproduced screenplays. Like, and so this opportunity with a single camera show, I do write a lot of like very vivid visual descriptions of how we enter the scene and camera angles and all of that stuff. So I sort of get that little thing. I get that out of my system, and then I quickly realize how much better other people are at that, like a DP and everyone else, and they sort of realize, oh, and that kind of goes the same with music to me too. I definitely put a lot of needle drop in first season, and then realized we have a really good music supervisor and really good composer and really smart editors who pick way better music than I do. So it's that thing of like, oh, the comfort of better people is what I would say is a nice aspect of that.
I love that. Stephanie, I'm going to ask you, how on earth did you manage writing, you know, Atlanta and What We Do in the Shadows and juggling those two shows and just delivering on that?
Elvis a bunch.
Yeah.
Got a lot of
our movies. So I don't know.
I guess the honest truth is I feel like I kind of blacked out during that period that those writers' rooms were happening on top of each other. And this was sort of the beginning of the pandemic too. So there was like a really healthy dose of panic and anxiety and being a shut-in. And then I think quite literally like jumping from one Zoom to another Zoom and alternating days and, you know, getting characters mixed up. Suddenly Donald Glover is a vampire and trying to work that out in my mind. But yeah, it was really tough, but it was a nice escape too, in a way, because it was such a crazy time that it was nice to sort of feel like you were doing business as normal a little bit and had an opportunity to make jokes and kind of escape. So for that reason, it was manageable.
Yeah. And Jen and Paul, I have to ask you about the lesbian cruise. Like, where did that idea, like, you know, I'd love to hear this from, you know, from everybody too, of like, you know, somebody comes up with this idea and you're like, okay, this is perfect. We want to see Deborah. We want to see Ava. Just, it's such a memorable episode and this fish out of water moment. But yeah, talk about how that came up and weaving that into the series.
Yeah, I think, you know, early on in season one, we kind of made reference to Deborah Vance starting the gay cruise trend. So canonically, we knew gay cruises were something Deborah was used to doing. And then I think like it was in kind of, do you remember exactly? I think it was like
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky
Yeah.
for season 2. After we had wrapped season 1, we were just kind of like going through what our big picture ideas. And yeah, it just, the idea of like, well, what if she's booked on a gay cruise, but it's a mistake and it's lesbians who are not her crowd, just like kind of was pitched, and we loved it. And it turned into being the most difficult to produce episode of television I've ever done. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you liked it, because it was a real hellish nightmare to find a working cruise ship that would let us shoot on it during COVID.
But once we had the line, a dinghy, we knew we had to do it. Once we thought Deborah Vance is kicked off mid-ocean,
Yeah.
we were like, all right, it's worth the trouble. And that was an instance of us writing a needle drop, because last season, Gene Smart had said, I would really love to sing. And so we thought, well, this might be a good place. So figuring out the song that she would sing on the lesbian cruise was another challenge, but quite fun.
Yeah. Well, to all of you, like, let's talk about landing on the season ending, like the challenge of like going through, the episodes one at a time, and then we end some cliffhangers, some not. Like, talk about landing on that ending. And Director Hwang, I'm going to start with you with Squid Game. Like, how did you get to that ending? And now we're anticipating season 2.
Yeah, please. Like, I'll speak in Korean because my English is not fluent enough to answer that question.
Okay.
그래서 저는 이게 처음 해보는 시리즈였어서 사실 이거 스퀴드 게임 쓰기 전에 급히 속성으로 그 여러분들이 쓰신 만드신 많은 시리즈, 미국의 많은 유명한 시리즈들을 좀 급하게 보고 공부를 좀 했습니다. 어떻게 그 클리프행어를 넣어야 다음 회를 끊이지 않고 바로 이어서 보게 할 수 있는지 연구하기 위해서 급하게 한 달 정도 그 유명한 시리즈들을 좀 찾아서 봤는데요. 거기서 많은 아이디어를 얻어서 그 가장 절묘한 시점에 에피소드를 끝내는 법을 연구를 좀 했고요. 그래서 나온 게 지금 스퀴드 게임 시즌 1에 제가 썼던 클리프행어들입니다.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And Liz, what about for you? How did you land on your season ending? And like, what's your secret, or what's your formula for?
Oh, I have
ending
a
the
real,
season?
I have a real formula. No. No, I also really enjoyed hearing the English word cliffhanger in the because I was like, yeah. I actually feel like it was the first time that I haven't had to end a season. I got to actually end the series as opposed to ending a season, which I was so happy about. So, I feel like you guys, most of the other people on the Zoom understand how difficult it is to kind of end a season where you're wrapping up an arc for that season, but still leaving something really big, left open. And then, when you get into season 5 and 6, you're just, you're just tap dancing. But yeah, I think for me, what was challenging was the trial was ongoing while Elizabeth Holmes' trial was ongoing while I was finishing the last episode, and I'd really, really procrastinated writing the last episode because I did not know how to end it. And in the writer's room, which had ended a year earlier because of COVID, we had decided that we were going to end it at Burning Man with Elizabeth Holmes and her new fiance, Billy. And then, of course, COVID, and we definitely were not going to end it in Burning Man. So it turned out to just be her getting into an Uber, which was ended up the poor man's Burning Man. No, so it was actually ended up, all of the sort of COVID pressures, I think, actually ended up really clarifying stuff for me, because I just had to boil everything down to like, what is the emotional truth, the single emotional truth that kind of had to come out in that moment, as opposed to all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. John, I know you've already started season 3 and we're still seeing season 2, but like, without spoiling, how do you work towards ending the season?
I mean, it's got a variety. So end of season 1, we pitched to Hulu at the very beginning of our first series pitch with Steve. So we had where we were going. In some way, I think I was just realizing with a mystery, which I never really crafted one, and certainly not one over 10 episodes, that was a good idea to sort of have a target to aim to and then twist our way to it. That helped a lot. But everything changes in between, and certainly the build-up to that ending was a blast, and that was all writers in and very exciting in certain ways to sort of, throw a lot of ideas out there and watch the very best of them rise to the top. So that was thrilling. In season 2, it's different. That's all I can say. It's different, but it's exciting. I actually think it's I don't know. I think in this way, sort of, you look at least with our show, with Murders, it's like each episode has its own little indie film vibe in certain ways, in my mind at least. And so you're putting the portraits together a la podcasts, sort of, and then you're taking them all. And I love the weave that lands all of the seeds that have been dropped throughout a season. So the unraveling at the end feels euphoric, honestly, to me. I love it if we get it right. And that hopefully is where we land in season 2. So I don't know what the hell we're gonna do for season 3 yet, but I feel good about 2.
Love that. Tom, talk about Better Call Saul, and we have mid-season finales, and then the finale coming up. Talk about how you work towards those moments, and Liz also, saying goodbye to, or not goodbye, but these characters.
Yeah, I mean, the mid-season finale, which was my episode that ended the first half, was not meant to be a mid-season finale. We were going to air them all 13 in a row, but COVID delays and also our lead actor having a heart attack pushed things, so we split things in 2. His heart attack came in the episode right after my episode, so we shut down, and then we filmed as much as we could without Bob and let him recover, and then his hours were cut back a lot, so we tried to make it as easy as possible for him to shoot when he did come back. He wanted to come back right away, and everyone was like, just take it easy, Bob. So yeah, when we're writing these things, we our characters could tell us where the story goes, but we will also we have our cork boards up that we put our big ideas on, that sometimes we get to them, sometimes we don't. We just put big ideas up, and if the characters work together and take us to that great goal, great. Otherwise, things will take a left turn, or something more surprising happens. So we don't, we have sort of plans for endings, but we don't lock ourselves in. We're flexible. So that's kind of how we've always worked on both Breaking Bad and Saul.
Yeah. Sarah, what about for you?
Yeah, I think Shadows work sort of maybe differently from certain shows where the finale doesn't get written until production has started. So usually we go into production with 9 out of 10 written and maybe kind of some, big idea cards on the board. But then while people are in Toronto for shooting, kind of seeing how things play out, I think it is a little bit kind of like watching the season happen in real time, guiding a little bit of where you end up. I feel like for season 3, we knew Colin Robinson would die and be reborn. And I don't know what else we learned to I don't know, Stephanie might remember.
I was going to say Stephanie.
Headlines that were in there, but I know Colin,
Yeah.
that was fixed.
I feel like the show, in general, with what we do in the Shadows, we have classically sort of since the beginning never really figured things out till as it was happening. And we're lucky if I feel like we have 9 episodes written. That feels very like we're at a really good spot. I think more recently it's been maybe 7.5 episodes written, and then just sort of figuring it out from there. which is really fun. And we do have sort of the bigger ideas, but in a way it sort of forces us to be creative, and because we don't have a lot of time, we have to make choices a lot faster and stick with them. So that's usually how we end up ending our seasons for that show, at least.
Yeah. And Molly, I mean, again, like with Tom and Liz, talk about the ending of MAID and like arriving at that. Obviously, again, you have like the source material of the book. So yeah, how did you land on your ending and get there?
Well, I feel like I can be more honest about it with a room full of writers, because I'm sure this sounds like hell to all of us, but I had to finish a limited series about a writer. And in the final episode, she, like the final sign that she's going to recover and be okay is that she expresses herself through writing. Like, is there something worse? There's nothing worse. So, and the book ends with her arriving at the M, which is wonderful. And that very image we used as our ending, but I had to kind of convey that she was going to go write about this experience. So I also couldn't use any of the actual writing from the book. So it's all like her final monologue. It's all me alone in a rented house in Canada, trying to sound as good as Stephanie Land, knowing it doesn't sound as good as Stephanie Land, and just hoping I'm not humiliating myself trying to write a writer. Because like I said, I don't know. It was one of those things where I got into editing and I was like, episode 10 is going to work, or it's going to be like the most spectacular failure of my life. So, but also like to speak a little bit to what Sarah was just saying, we were writing a lot of MAID while we were shooting it. And I think about the finale with that a lot because, I had gotten to know Margaret so well. It was 9 months of us living on this little island. And I really started to write the show for her. So part of, I think, the reason 10 is special to me, the finale is special, is, I feel like Margaret and I kind of arrived there together. And it's custom written for her.
Yeah. That's so amazing. And I want to come back to that in a minute. But, for Paul and Jen, I remember when when we got the season finale of Hacks, everyone was like, wait, is that the end? Like, are we going to get another season? And that was just the real time reaction. But talk about landing on that ending and how you got there.
Yeah, we actually had talked about, we've said this before, but we conceptualized the show in 2015. And the three of us have been talking about it forever. So when we pitched the show, we pitched the series finale. And so it was kind of early in the writing of season 2 where we figured out where we wanted the end of the season to go. And we wanted it to feel different from season 1, which is a cliffhanger. We wanted to feel like there was some resolution and character growth. But in and of itself, that kind of resolution between Deborah and Ava is also a bit of a cliffhanger. As you say, people were like, is this it? Is this the end? But hopefully that's just because it felt in some ways satisfying.
Yeah, but we like, in terms of endings and figuring them out, like it's usually we always figure out our season ending. That's like one of the first things we try to figure out, is like where we're starting and then what we're writing towards. And that's been kind of the process of season 1 and 2, is that we knew what we were writing towards and did end up doing that. And kind of it's very helpful for us to know where we're headed to be able to craft it. And obviously, like Tom said, like you never want to shut yourself out to other ideas, and as you're shooting and making it, things come up and they change, but usually we have these like big tentpoles that we know we're writing towards for the end of the season.
And I think, like Molly was saying, because we have such great actors in the show, we get to, our North Star is really like, what is fun for Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder to play in the end? And sort of, if we know when they get that script, it's going to feel juicy and fun for them to do. That's kind of the barometer for us in terms of like, does that feel satisfying as an ending or even as a scene, just because, we have these great actors to work with, as we all do.
Well, that's to all of you, like, how much do you work with the actors when writing and developing their roles? Like you said, you've got Molly, you had Margaret, Paul, and Jen, you have Jean and Hannah, like, and you have this time with them. Like, how much do they play into the script and the storytelling?
Hugely for us. I think Lucia and I particularly come from performing. And so because we come from, as an actor, I feel like it's so much easier for us to write in the voice of the character and to sort of embody them as much as we can in the writing process. And once we had Jean and Hannah, who have their own, they're so dynamic and distinct. I think it made season 2, we were able to even go deeper and write more specifically for them, because now we know their voice so well.
Yeah. Stephanie, what about for you with Atlanta having, you've got such an incredible Brian Tyree Henry is amazing, but you've got Donald and talk about
on Atlanta. It's interesting. It's like that's one of the shows that I feel like that I've worked on, which feels incredibly autobiographical. That show, I think a lot of the other projects that I've worked on, I really feel like I am writing for the character and for the actor. But I feel like on Atlanta, our process is very much pulling things from our own lives and then sort of fitting them into the world of the character. So for me, sometimes what's interesting is when I read some of the scripts, I hear the voice of the other writers, not necessarily the actors. And it is just I think the nature of that show. But at the same time, we're so lucky because we have such an incredible cast on that show, and they are just so unbelievably steeped in those characters. And obviously it's helpful having Donald in the room, who's actually on the show, and that translation is super helpful for him to sort of translate both of those worlds. But it's sort of, as you pointed out, like Brian Tyree Henry, Lakeith, Zizzy, I mean, they're all just so good, and they understand and they ask questions and they're so well prepared. But I think those worlds are very separate. And then Donald is sort of the liaison for both, whereas what we do in the shadows, I think, is a little bit of the complete opposite. I think maybe early on it wasn't so much, but after, I feel like the ensemble got more into their own characters and not be, speaking for myself, and Sarah, you can probably speak to this too, after we spent more time with them as people, and they're all, I mean, our cast is just like each individual actor is just has this like their own weird cult of like stuff, and they have like their own weird specific body of work, and they all sort of represent these different weird pockets of comedy from all over the world, and so they come with them with, I think, a lot of experience, but they also sort of represent sort of their own body of work in that way. So just getting to know them and their comedic sensibilities and what they find funny and what their strengths are. Matt Berry, for instance, is also a musician, and so knowing that we can write more musically for him, for instance, or Kay Van Novak, who plays Nandor, is an incredible impersonator and got, I feel like a lot of his early stuff, it was impersonating and very, very broad and very specific character work at the same time. Like he was doing just so much of that stuff. And I think even had a prank show where he dressed up and impersonated people for a long time on the UK. So in season 3, making sure that we had opportunities for him to showcase that off. So I think in that room, it becomes very much a marriage of the writer sensibilities and then the actor sensibilities. And also that show that there's so much improvisation. Like we have the script and we do get it scripted, but since they're such amazing writers as well, we let them kind of run with that in the characters and performance. So it's sort of a very collaborative process in that way.
Yeah. Sarah, did you want to add to?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Stephanie. I feel like it's with the improv on set, I feel like our actors like know those characters inside and out. When they're improvising, it always feels like on story and everything, you know what I mean? Like they know that voice extremely well. And I feel like when we're writing, it could be something like as big as let's do an entire story which allows Kayvon to do different impressions, or just like Matt Berry has such a distinctive speaking voice. It's like, what are the syllables that are funniest for Matt Berry to say? Or Natasha's an incredible physical comedian. What can we do to her to showcase that? So I feel like we think a lot about kind of the particular strengths of the actors and what would be the most fun to see them do.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that with Molly's story about that last episode, I was like, I feel like I have to say, like in the last moments of the Dropout, Amanda like screams, and in the script she was at that point I trusted her so much. I think it just said like, everything comes out or something really lame like that. You know, that just like that thing in the script where you're just like literally handing it off to them and just saying like, whatever happens, I think you'll know is right and it'll work, you know. And I just remember that moment where I so fully trusted her that I kind of let her, I don't want to say do my work, but like kind of like put it in her hands in this like beautiful way, which is the dream. I just completely interrupted everybody to say that. Sorry. Tom.
No, it's perfect. Yes, Tom, back to you. Talk about your experience, you know, your experience in working with Rhea, who was so amazing, like how much you get, you know, you write for her, especially how many years have you been, you know, with these characters now? And
all of our actors have shaped the way the characters have gone with their, I mean, particularly Michael McKean really shaped the show in season 1 with his portrayal of Jimmy's brother Chuck, just the way he presented himself, the way he talked. He was originally just going to be a shut-in who Jimmy would go to for legal advice, but he was so proud. When we saw his early episodes, he just came across so proud and so, you know, precious about the legal world that it really changed the way the series went. That how could he take his brother seriously? His brother is such a fuck up, and how could he be a lawyer? It really, by the time we got to the end of season 1, it really altered the course of the whole show. And so, but we don't talk to our actors ahead of time. We write our show and we watch what they do, and watching what they do informs how the characters develop as we go on. So all the actors are, you know, get the script and are surprised at what happens in these scripts. So none of them really participate or know what's going to happen. And they're really good. I mean, our actors are so good. They do their homework. They get together and do their lines ahead of time. It's so when we get on the set, everybody's so prepared. It's so easy that I think we get a lot more shots done, you know, in a day because of how prepared they are than we normally would.
I love that. And Director Hwang, what about for you? What was, you know, how much involvement did, you know, your cast have in, you know, in bringing Squid Game to, you know, to life and collaborate with you at all, if at all?
그래서 제 시즌 1에서 사실 지금 모든 캐릭터를 성기훈 빼놓고 다 죽여놔서 지금 제가 시즌 2에 아주 큰 문제에 봉착해 있습니다. 지금 새로 캐릭터를 모두 만들어야 돼서. 그리고 그 성기훈조차도 시즌 1 엔딩에서 원래 처음엔 그 나이브한 사람이었는데 굉장히 다크하게 변하게 제가 만들어서 지금 시즌 2에 또 이 성기훈 캐릭터를 이정재 씨가 어떻게 끌고 나가야 될지 지금 쓰면서도 저희 매일 악몽에 시달릴 정도로 힘들어하고 있습니다. 예, 앞에 질문에 대해서 제가 시즌 1 엔딩에 대해서 왜 그렇게 끝내는지 아까 대답을 잘 못했는데 제가 시즌 2를 사실 하게 될지 몰랐어요. 리미티드 시리즈라고 생각하고 처음에 시작을 해서 아마 시즌 2를 하게 될 줄 알았다면 성기훈을 그렇게 빨간 머리를 또 만들어 버리진 않았을 것 같습니다. 그래서 빨간 머리 때문에도 굉장히 힘들어하고 있습니다. 제가. 사실 저는 제가 거의 다 혼자 이걸 쓰고 직접 디렉팅을 하기 때문에 라이터로서 사실 배우들하고 어떻게 일하는지는 제가 사실 경험이 좀 없는 편이고 사실 모든 걸 제가 디렉팅을 하기 때문에 현장에서 제가 쓴 걸 가지고 배우들한테 직접 말로서 푼다는 생각을 많이 가지고 일을 해서 그냥 라이팅만 할 때랑은 조금 다르게 생각을 하고 라이터로서 일을 하는 것 같긴 합니다. 배우들하고 일하는 측면에 있어서는.
Yeah, I appreciate that completely. And John, I mean, you know, with your cast, you know, how much is built on?
I had to take a real deep dive into their previous work to see what, you know, they might be good at. So no, it's so absurd. And I, you know, the challenge here was honestly right off the bat was just, I had a lexicon in my head of particularly Marty and Steve for all my life, and how to give them something that felt comfortable for them, that felt like a fit, that felt funny, and then, but also maybe progress them further and turning a script into those guys. So I was like, oh, okay, I hope you like it. So that was delightful to get this embrace from them quickly. And then to have Selena there as well in this way, sort of, I think the thing that came when Selena and Marty and Steve and I first got together, and I agree, I spend a lot of time on set with all three of them and feel very close and sort of in all of the process. They're very enmeshed. And I recognized pretty quickly that all three of them, as you will sort of have this moment, you're at this crux moment in your life whenever you're embarking on a creative new thing. And that was the case here. So there were two sides of it. I was looking at ways to sort of give homage at times in structure and sort of comedic premises for things we love about all three of these actors, and watching them do the things in certain ways that echo on things we've loved. And then the very now thing that I was recognizing just in person about them as humans, and learning about them, about their insecurities, about the pathos that I also wanted to be a part of the show for all three of these characters, and the connective tissue that might occur between the three of them. The magic that occurred between the three of them was the unexpected gift of all time for this show. No one really knew to expect that. And that's all due to them. I mean, I will never forget the first time we saw that happen and thought, oh, couldn't explain it, couldn't write it, couldn't do anything to help that. It was just lovely to see. But I genuinely feel like I only want to do the thing that makes us love them more, but also makes them step a little bit higher if we can sometimes. And I really do see them love that too, and embrace that and want that for themselves as well. So that's the greatest experience of this.
Yeah. And to your point, John, the great thing about all your shows is watching the dynamic, the magic, chemistry of the cast really come together. What is that like for you as writers to see, your words brought to life by these, by your incredible respective casts, and then just the magic that just, filters out throughout them? And Stefani, I'm going to start with you and Sarah for what we do in the shadows, because I remember that first episode and you're like, wow, like their chemistry, was we saw that right from the first episode, and here we are now in season three, and we feel like we've known these guys for so long. But talk about seeing it all come to life.
It's really trippy. I mean, speaking just for myself, like I haven't been in this industry for very long, and I feel like every time pass off my script to a professional actor and they're saying the words and the cameras are rolling, it's like it's a treat. It still doesn't get old, and it's awesome to see. And I think for what we do in the shadows in particular, it's like we've been saying, Sarah and I were just so spoiled with such an amazing cast, and even since the beginning of the show, to sort of watch the show sort of turn into what it is now, it has been a really insane ride. But I mean, I don't know. I've been such a fan of Matt Berry, I feel like, since high school. And I mean, Natasha Dimitri, who plays Nadja, was a friend of mine before we made the show. So there was a lot of just like an admiration, and I feel like mutual love and respect. So, I mean, to even just get to know everybody, our entire cast as people, is such an incredibly surreal, awesome experience. But Sarah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel like, they're insanely talented. And I feel like when we're writing, we're always trying to think of like, well, when can we get the entire group in a room? Because it's always fun when that ensemble, it doesn't really matter what they're doing. If they can all be in the same space, it feels fun to write and then fun to watch kind of come to life. And then it's also such a joy to see things that you didn't expect, obviously, when you were writing it. Like I know in the casino episode that I got to write for season 3. Anthony Atamnik, who plays the human neighbor Sean, he like has to give a toast, which was written sort of as just like a joke, and he made it this grand emotional thing, and it blew everyone away when we were watching it like on monitors and stuff. It was just, you know, it's like the excitement of not only seeing something come to life, but then it surprising you, even though you've spent so much time kind of thinking you've thought through every detail. There's always going to be a new element.
Yeah. And, you know, Jen and Paul, you know, that dynamics between, you know, Heather and Jean, you know,
Yeah.
talk about that magic and the whole cast,
Yeah.
really.
Well, you know, we have been such fans of Jean Smart, you know, whether it's Frasier or Fargo, anytime she pops up in something, she is so fun to watch and just to us always stole the show. So it was so great to give her something where she could show her full range in this lead role. But then it was really kind of scary to pair her with someone because we wanted it to be an unknown actor and someone who was much younger. But I remember when we were doing the very first screen test, and, you know, Jean Smart was just reading off the page. She was not fully performing. And it was we got goosebumps just from the first time they read together. It was just, again, like everyone is saying, it's not something you can write when there's chemistry and there's an alchemy. But we also are so lucky to have an ensemble, you know, even people like Rose Abdu, who's such a gifted actor, to knock it out of the park as Josefina, as, you know, anytime she steps onto the screen. It's so nice to see that ecosystem, because while the show is about this larger than life performer, it's also really about her world and all the people in it. And getting them all together is really, it's kind of like, I think you guys were saying about Shadows. It's really fun to see them all on the same screen, bouncing off each other, and they're all such great actors.
Yeah, it's very much a privilege to like write for these wonderful actors. And I think also the way the show is kind of about this woman who is an underdog, who's been underappreciated, and she's fighting to get back. Like, we also love writing, Paulucci and I like love writing for actors, and we love writing specifically for people too, that you're like, oh yeah, what about, you know, like people who we have loved for so long that maybe haven't gotten as many chances as other people or things like that. Like, it is just such like a gift to be able to do that. And so I think we also really love the fact that having this show, we can have people come and play on set and join the ensemble who, you know, someone like Harriet Sansom Harris, who like we were huge fans of forever, an incredible like theater actor and film and stuff, and say like, oh yeah, would she want to do this TV show? Would she want, you know, like things like that. It is like it's really wonderful to be able to give that right for actors we love and have them come do it on set with our main cast too.
Yeah. Tom, what about for you?
Yeah, I like, you know, John used the phrase unexpected magic. And I mean, that's really, we've had a lot of that on this show. I mean, we didn't know the importance of Kim Wexler early on when we started the series, and, you know, what Ray Seahorn brought, and Bob. I mean, we knew Bob was hysterical, you know, comedian, you know, one of the greats. And who knew the son of a bitch could act? Because his drama is really, really good. So the two of them together were just, you know, once we started seeing them on screen together, we were like, oh my God, what do we have here? And we would write more and more to the relationship between Kim and Jimmy. And then we had Michael Mando and Patrick Fabian. Also, you know, we didn't know exactly what we had, but they really informed so much of what happens in the show, and all the good things and the tragic things that happen in our story. They became much more important characters instead of just supporting characters, quote unquote. They really became important to Jimmy McGill's journey to Saul Goodman.
Yeah. I love that. And there's still some, you know, some more to unravel. What about for you, Liz? Talk about, you know, working with Amanda and Michael in this phenomenal cast.
It was a struggle. I mean, no, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, she is the show. It's like she's you know, blew me away. And we had this there was this problem of the voice, you know, that I was so stressed out about, because I felt like that was this like it could be this comedy thing that would really take away from the character and the emotion, and I was so nervous about it, even though I like adored Amanda and I'd like, you know, spoken to her on the phone about it. And but when I sat down for that first rehearsal, she had done her own work on the voice, and she just started talking, and I'm sorry to use this image, but it was just like a butthole unclenched. I was like, oh, we have, like,
how does that translate into Korean?
That's a very good question, Tom. I don't want to hear it.
Please don't answer. I'm so sorry. No, but it's just like, I think it's like, I think everybody who's on this Zoom knows, because everybody has these actors in their shows, but like just that feeling of like, oh, we're off, you know, like that, like we're like everything I've done has got, you know, is now in their hands, and we're off, and it's exciting. And, you know, it's just that sort of feeling, and just, and, you know, the fact that Amanda was playing this character who was so cold inside, and you know, didn't have a lot of feelings, but managed to have so much chemistry with everyone she was on screen with, you know, without having to like, without emotionally connecting with them. I was so in awe of, and also the ability of her ability to kind of hold comedy and drama together at the same time, which I feel like so many of the actors on all of your shows do so well. But I think that's, as somebody who's worked in comedy for, you know, 10 years, like before I did this, I really respect the ability of a dramatic actor to be funny, and you know what I mean, like it, and that's a very hard thing to do, and with the right tone. So I mean, I guess I just like, I'm in awe of her, and you know, all of our cast was, you know, we discovered this actor Sam Waterston, who I think is like really gonna make something. I see him as like a lawyer type, but anyway, I'll stop this bit. I'm so sorry about saying the word butthole.
I'm still thinking about the translation of that one.
Is the translation Squid Game? So sorry. Okay, I'm muting myself. Goodbye.
Director Hwang, what about for you? And yes, if you do want to share the translation of butthole, then Liz will be very happy.
I'll email you. 배우들하고 일한 경험에 대해서 물어보는 건가요?
네, 맞습니다.
저도 저희 배우들이 사실 JJ 리는 진짜 어릴 때부터, 그는 한 20살 때부터 빅스타였고, 뭐 한 30년을 한국에서 가장 유명한 스타 중에 한 사람으로 살아온 사람인데, 사실 그 JJ 리를 제외한 나머지 캐스트 멤버들은 거의 한국에서 알려지지 않은 배우들로 캐스팅을 했어요. 뭐 오영수 선생님 같은 경우는 티어터만 평생 해오신 분이고, 호연 같은 경우는 패션 모델만 해온 친구였고, 뭐 해수 같은 경우도 티어터를 오래 해오다가 막 TV 쪽으로 넘어온 친구였고, 그래서 거의 무명에 가까운, 한국 사람들도 잘 모르는 배우들로 모두 캐스팅을 했는데요. JJ 리를 중심으로 해서. JJ 리조차도 사실 너무 멋진 역들, 뭐 좋은 역이든 악역이든 멋진 역들을 주로 해오던 배우라 이렇게 트레이닝복을 입고 망가지는 역을 해본 지가 너무 거의 처음이었어서, 이들을 모아놓고 이 신선한 새 뉴 페이스들과 어떤 이전까지 보여준 적이 없는 모습을 보여주는 JJ 리를 모아놓고 함께 연기를 하는 것이, 그들의 연기를 지켜보는 게 뭐 작가로서도 감독으로서도 너무 신선하고 되게 즐거운 경험이었습니다. 그래서 일부러 그렇게 캐스팅을 한 것이, 사람들이 좀 이 게임 자체를 실제 마치 있는 것인 것처럼, 이들이 마치 우리가 늘 보던 스타가 아니라 자기 자신인 것처럼 느끼게 하고 싶었어요. 그래서 이렇게 좀 최대한 신선한 사람들로, 뉴 페이스들, 언노운 액터들로 이 작품을 만들고 싶었고, 그걸 뭐 감독으로서도 작가로서도 또 한 사람의 시청자로서도 저도 그걸 보는 것을 즐겼던 것 같습니다.
I love that. And Molly, what about for you? What was that like? You know, you mentioned, you know, seeing Margaret, but, you know, incredible cast again. Seeing her bring your words to life and that dynamic that she has with your cast.
I bet everyone has this, which was like, there was the awe of watching an artist like Margaret work, but then there was also just the awe of that we were shooting anything during the pandemic. I mean, we shot all of MAID during like peak, you know, pre-vaccine, just like, and John Wells and Margaret and I would rehearse 6 feet apart, masked. And, you know, it's a show about domestic violence and emotional abuse and these incredibly personal things. And all of the writers and the entire cast, we all went to very emotional places to make this show, but we did it masked 6 feet away from each other. It was such a kind of, I don't know how any of our shows exist, is the truth. It was so crazy. So now when I see Margaret and we can hug, you know, I actually kind of can't believe how young she is, because she did carry the show and we knew it going in. I mean, everything was who we cast to play her. The minute we met her, she was it, you know, but to have that kind of pressure at just 25 to carry an entire show during a global pandemic and to be the number one on the call sheet, to be the most prepared, to work the absolute hardest, the longest hours, you know, I can't say enough about how she raised the whole bar, but also like during a once in a lifetime, you know, we will all never work under conditions like that again. So yeah, I'm in awe and grateful every day that she was our number one.
Amazing. Last words of advice that you would give to the audience tuning in and watching that want to break into writing, or, you know, sticking was, you know, breaking into it and sticking with it and not giving up.
I'm not a mute, so I'll go first. But my advice, and somebody said this to me, I just love it, I think about it all the time, is you have to run your own race. And that means not comparing yourself to other writers, what they're doing, what the hot project is. You know, I mean, you know, you have to write the thing that means something to you when it's the right time to write it, and just run your own race. Don't worry about what any of these other boxes are doing.
Yeah. Anybody else want to give advice to the audience tuning in out there?
I mean, I think Jen said this very well before, but Hacks is really about, you know, getting knocked down and getting back up for the 1,000th time. And I think that would be my advice, is just whether it's writing something or whether you're auditioning for a part. And, you know, there's a lot of rejection in any creative field. And I think it's just about just getting back up and, like Molly said, running your own race, just dusting yourself off and trying again.
Yeah.
I think I would say there's you know, so many elements that go into making anything, and it can get very distracting, and it's really hard to keep focus. And you know, as tonally mixed as our show is, there is a center there, and it's very personal in many ways. And so I always advise anyone I speak to about, it's always hard. You always hear, go to write the thing, you know, all of that. But the personal moment for me, I don't know why this has worked nicely for me, but if it's a bit of advice that helps, I don't get out of bed for like 10 to 20 minutes after waking up. And it's the one moment that's mine in a day, and I can get most close to sort of what I want to do and what I'm interested in. And many times it solves a story problem, but it's the quietest, most private moment. And cherish those. I would argue that as a writer, just it feels like they're the most close to you. And that's a tool I've used before that I would give if it helps.
I think in my maybe my sort of bubble or peer group growing up, there was sort of, and I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but there's sort of like this romanticizing what it means to be an artist or a writer, a performer, or any of that stuff, and this idea that like you need to be struck by inspiration to do the thing and to go out there and I don't know, like I feel like when I was first starting out, I was always waiting to feel like it, like I needed to feel inspired. And the second that I felt bored or stuck or frustrated, I quit. And I think just the thing that I'm learning, not only with writing, just maybe with life, is that you just got to do it when you don't feel like it. It's work, like it becomes work. Yeah, it's just like working out. Like if you want to become a better writer, I think if you want to be stronger at your craft, it's just doing it, just getting up and doing it, even when you don't feel like it. And I also feel like it's almost reversed. Like, right. Like I growing up, I was like, oh, I need to feel inspired to write. And now the older I get, the more work I do, it's opposite. It's like the act of me doing it, even when I don't feel like it, actually generates like that momentum, and that energy generates inspiration. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say.
I love that advice.
I know
it's all great advice for us.
I'll take that one, Steph.
Beautiful. I also really like, even like, I would say just like the smallest part is so important. And so, I mean, I don't know who the audience is. Maybe the audience of this panel are all movie stars, but I guess like the sort of, I just find in making shows, it's like, all of the little pieces are so important. And I think like, even if you only have one line in a scene, it can be like such a like great moment. And we're so sort of thankful in the editing room later, if like somebody nails a moment. So I guess I would just, I don't know what the advice is, but keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's hard.
Love it.
저도 비슷한 얘기를 해주고 싶은데요. 그냥 자기 자신을 믿고 계속 앞으로 나아가라는 말을 해주고 싶습니다. 뭐 14년 전에 아무도 좋아하지 않았던, 모두가 노라고 얘기했던 이 스퀴드 게임이 갑자기 모두가 사랑하는 작품이 됐잖아요. 자기 자신을 믿고 계속 무언가를 꾸준히 열심히 하면 당신들에게도 여러분한테도 이런 기적 같은 일이 생길 수 있다고 믿고 있습니다. 그래서
Love that.
But make a list of everyone who says no, and then like we just rub it in their faces later.
Actually, I did it.
Good advice. Good advice. Well, on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you all for sharing your experience, your process, and your craft with our audience. And good luck to all of you at the Emmys. And thank you so much for that incredible conversation.
Okay. I'll see you guys at the Emmy.
Thank you.
Thank you.